Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment Questions and Answers Edition. I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. Listen, we have to start where we left off last week, talking about cool, because we had a row. A lot of people on social media, I was very touched. They said, I don't like it when mummy and daddy row.
We had a discussion.
Oh, it was an argument. It was
No,
a full-on
it
argument.
wasn't.
If you didn't listen to it...
Oh, buck up.
Firstly, see, do you think we're having a row now?
No.
Well,
Do you?
I think a little bit, because you just told me to buck up. We were talking... Someone asked a question about what we consider to be cool. Marina had, I thought, a very traditional version of it, a sort of Steve McQueen type version of it, and I was trying to expand the definition of
You were
cool.
trying to expand it infinitely, weren't you, to people you liked?
Pierce Brosnan, I said, was cool.
He's suave, Richard. I give 100% give him that.
Let's let listeners weigh in, rather than... We can't refight the Second World War.
I'm
You know
told
what I mean?
that the
Let's just make
support
films
was
about it.
overwhelmingly for my position in
The support
the
is
inbox.
massively in your favour. I would say that, but that's not
Wow,
always...
how cool. You're out on the edge. You're an outlier.
Sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
I said Pierce Brosnan was cool. You don't think he is. I said
think he's suave.
Victoria Wood was cool. I said Stephen Hendry was cool. Shall we go through what a few other people said? As you say, most people agree with you. I have to say, Gemma Mead says, I'm with Marina. A lot of the messages started with I'm with Marina.
Yeah.
I'm with Marina or hashtag Team Marina. Richard was naming brilliant people, but not cool. Cool is different. End of. If only that were the end, Gemma. Megan Morris says, oh, it's all a bit personal. She said, I would say that Marina is cool and Richard is nice. Oh, man.
I'm not cool, though.
Pierce Brosnan is absolutely not cool, and nor is Victoria Wood, says Megan. Okay. Paul Williams, I'm 58 and from the era of Big Snooker. Same. As much as I love Richard, Hendry was never cool. He was the least cool of all the snooker players ever. If I had to go for one, it'd be Big Bill Werbenyuk.
Oh, really? I thought he was going to say Jimmy White. Okay.
No, Bill Werbenyuk was cooler than the... Come on, let's not do which
Let's not
snooker
go back
players
to
were
snooker.
cool. Chris Ship, great name. If you say it quickly, it sounds like cruise ship.
Yeah.
So people must think if he's like on a crackly phone, a cruise ship is ringing me. Anyway, Chris Ship says, again, a lot of this cuts fairly to the quick for me. Couldn't help but feel Richard's coolest was close to what I assume Alan Partridge would say. Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Listen, I get it. I do get it. Andrew Knight says, I too like Pierce Brosnan, but he is not cool. My wife certainly doesn't think so. On our honeymoon to Bora Bora, it's a hell of a place to go on a honeymoon, isn't it? It's a bit White Lotus. He and his wife were in the same hotel in the next bungalow to ours. Oh, he's got a bit of money, Andrew Knight, if he's staying at the same resort as Brosnan. Because, listen, he may not be cool, but he's loaded. He said, my wife found him to be overly flirty, even while at dinner with his wife. 9 months later, when our daughter was born with very dark hair, we joked that Brosnan was the father.
Oh, you just read that out?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
he told us. He said, well, he's written it in. I'm not saying Brosnan was the father. He's just saying that,
I had a lot to say last week, but I'm speechless at this moment. Carry on.
But I think, so listen, most people agree with you. Paul Oliver, I think, sums it up best when he says, as usual, Marina is right.
That's not true.
Richard has just described people my nan likes.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Well.
Sam Rucker, it's interesting this, isn't it? Because sometimes, and this was my point, I think, is I thought your definition of cool was very traditional. And surely it's changed since the 50s. Surely, I know that James Dean used to be cool.
The
Is
words
he
mean
still
different
cool?
things than they did in the 19... That's interesting.
Yeah, they do, and this is one of
Does
them, I think.
definition mean the same thing?
Sam Rucker, okay? Sam Rucker says this, he or she. You can tell he or she is young because he starts with, Marina, I think you are sick. He means that in a good way.
Semantic shift. Word has changed the meaning.
Semantic shift,
Yeah.
exactly.
We haven't said that on the show before.
I think you are sick, but Richard is right about cool. The definition has 100% changed, and the fact that you don't know that is very much uncool. These days, you can be sensitive, intelligent, and maybe even slightly nerdy, and be very cool. Thank you, Sam. That was my point.
Well, then you can be anything, can't you? You can be an infinite number of qualities. Well, we're not going to get back into it, but I do believe there has been contact.
Yes, there has. I said, and I stick by it, Stephen Hendry is cool. And the reason I said Stephen Hendry is cool is because he comes across as very uncool on television. And when you meet him, it's very different, and he is very cool, especially for a snooker player. You, and I have to say 90% of our respondents, disagree with me strongly about that. Should I tell you someone who agrees with me that Stephen Hendry is cool? Stephen Hendry. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Richard. Thank you oh so much for your compliments, saying that I'm cooler than Johnny Depp. As you and I know, it's without question. And Marina, I'm very disappointed. What's not cool about spending your whole life in a dark room, potting balls with a wooden stick on a 12 by 6 table for 6 hours every day? wearing a dinner suit every day as your work clothes. What's not cool about that? It's way cooler than, what's his name? Captain Jack Sparrow. Cheers, guys.
Yeah?
Okay. You see, I
Yeah?
love Stephen Hendry,
Okay.
but he
Do
is
you?
actually, I'm sorry, that's a real Rorschach video there because he's agreeing with me. He's making a joke about it. And you could say there's elements
He's
of
not
cool
making a
in
joke
doing
about it.
Oh, please.
Of course he's not.
Wearing a dinner suit as your work clothes. Yes, he is making a joke. I'm sorry you couldn't hear it.
Oh my God. Wow. So I tell you something else I'm going to do. At the premiere of Thursday Murder Club, I'm going to get Brosnan to come and talk to you. All right? I'm going to give him...
Yes, please.
I'm going to give him...
He's so suave, Richard.
I'm
He's
gonna
so
give-
suave.
You know what? I'm going to give him 10 minutes with you. And afterwards, I'm going to say, do we still think he's suave or do we think he's cool? If you still think he's not cool after that, I will let it lie. But I'm going to give you 10 minutes alone with Brosnan.
Great, you've just booked an item for that week's podcast, so I'm in.
But thank you very much, everybody, for
Thank you
your,
very
for your
much
many
for
responses.
continuing, yeah.
But yes, listen, almost everyone agrees with you.
No.
But listen, I'm very, very used to that on this podcast. I'm a voice in the wind. I really, really
No,
understand
you're
it.
not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. Let's get to some questions,
Yes,
Richard.
let's
Come
do
on.
that, and let's hope there's no rows this time. We'll start with a topical one from Kate Bradley. With the Oscars soon, just wondering how they decide who sits where. With road seating, how is it decided who sits further at the front? And with rows and tables, do big names get to veto who they sit next to? Any tales of people refusing their seating allocation?
Ah, that is interesting. This has been fraught with danger and politics, this particular thing. There was a guy called Otto Spoeri who did it for about 20 years. He gave sort of quite lengthy interviews, but he's stopped doing it, honestly, about 20 years ago, but he gave quite lengthy interviews about the whole process. And I think the first year he did it, he put some people who he didn't realise they'd had a relationship together. And, so he thought,
it's hard
after
in
that,
Hollywood,
I
that-
did
that's
my
a-
homework.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but there's so many things to consider. The most important thing to consider with the Oscars is that it is a TV event. It is entirely made for television and it has to be a show. So if you've got someone in the wrong place and they've got to do a 25-second walk to the podium and you have a few of those, the producers are tearing their hair out because it takes so long. So you need to get them like close. Everything has to be guessed. They don't get told. As you know, do you remember there's this whole sort of thing like it's chained to an accountant's wrist or whatever, these things. And it's like, but you still awarded Best Picture
winners,
to the
yeah.
wrong, when they awarded it to La La Land instead of Moonlight. Anyway, but before they'll have pictures from the theatre and you'll have those pictures of where everyone's going to sit and it will be their kind of acting directory headshot in the seats of where they're going to see. But they have many, many seat fillers. I think they have 300 seat fillers on the night because you're supposed never to see, because this thing goes on forever. And when people want to go to the or go out for whatever reason, you can't see empty seats at the Oscars because who wouldn't kill to be there? So they get them all done up in their gowns and their whatever, and you're not allowed to speak unless you're spoken to, but you're kind of bussed in and you can see someone leaving in one of the ad breaks and you have to go and sit there. But the main thing you see, think about this show as a television programme. So you have to have clear shots, camera shots, lines for the reactions. So you have to think, we don't know who's going to win Best Actor, but I want to be able to see each of them look so happy it wasn't them.
You need
so
for a
glad
fact to
that
know
it
that
was.
Camera 3 has got Adrian Brody, for
Yeah.
example, and you've got a clear shot of him, and no one tall is in the way of that person. So the director knows exactly where everyone is.
And you need to do that with a ton of categories.
Yeah.
So they've
By
got.
the way, I know that I'm on TV a lot, and I apologise, but there was a cutaway of me and my brother and Ingrid on Match of the Day
I
last
know.
week. Oh my God, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I'm on TV. That was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
On Match of the Day as
On
well.
Match of the Day, I was so happy.
It's so
Anyway,
weird, like of all the things you've been on, and you're like, oh my God, I've been in a cutaway on Match of the Day. That's
I was
it.
really excited.
So in terms of the actual sort of the seating, it's obviously actors and Mr. Spielberg at the front, basically. And then the crafts categories are at the back because no one really cares about them, although we do care, blah, blah. But then there are weird, there are local politicians, there are like ABC dignitaries, there are money people, lawyers.
And they want to sit near celebrities. If you've got someone
and
who's giving you a lot of money, or someone who
Yes.
is broadcasting your event, then you put them as near to Jack Nicholson as you can.
You do, but the Academy makes 90% of its all of its activities off this TV broadcast from ABC, so they need to make it a really good show. And they sometimes put movie casts together, so you can see that we're all patting each other on the back when we get it. And the thing about the seating now is that we live in freeze frame culture. We live in a nightmarish world. It is so dangerous. Not only have they got lip readers on all the people, you have to be hyper disciplined because no one ever paused before we had digital TV, any of this stuff. But so many of them become a reaction meme. The most famous one of all, like Chrissy Teigen looking like she's crying. That's actually from the Golden Globes. But
we did a terrible one at the BAFTAs once because we forgot we were on camera.
Yeah.
We were very annoyed about a particular decision. And we were on camera at the time.
Well, you become a meme forever. Think of that one where Meryl Streep is like in the audience pointing at the stage. I think Patricia Arquette had said something about wage equality or something. Do you remember Nicole Kidman's like really weird clapping when her fingers... It's so weird. Google Nicole Kidman clapping, or you've probably just attached that meme to a million other things. Andrew Garfield, like, sort of gritting his teeth in excruciation. Jennifer Aniston waving and not getting waved back because the person doesn't see her. It's like, yep, it happens to her as well. When Green Book won, Chadwick Boseman giving it real side-eye to someone behind him. You become a meme, like, really quickly. And so every year yields new ones. So you have to be very, very disciplined. But I love all those sort of seating plans. Like, they used to have them on Concorde, which was at Concorde they only had...
people can't sit next to certain other people.
Well, yeah, but it also, on Concorde, they had the first 3 rows were a complete, more than your stock price, more than anything. It was like your personal price as a, like, is Murdoch in 1A? And if he's not in 1A, then who the hell else is on that flight? Because all the seats are the same. And there are 2 on either side of a long aisle. And that was a huge thing. Where you sat on Concorde for certain people was absolutely massive.
I was on 2 sides of one story once. There was a celebrity and they were saying that they were sat in their like seat 1B on a British Airways flight. And as they got there, they realised that in seat 1A was Piers Morgan. And they were like, And so they swapped seats with one other person in their party. So they sat in 2 and the other person sat next to Piers Morgan. And then I saw Piers Morgan in his column just go, I'm not saying that I'm famous, but I was in row 1 and XXX was in row 2. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
it wasn't about that.
No, it wasn't about that. So essentially, it's a combination of there's like a social secretary who does all their research into who can't sit next to who and previous relationships and things. And then you run it past ABC, who are saying, we need this person here, this person there.
Correct. But you can petition. And they always say, if you do it politely and explain there's a reason we can't, and your people do it politely, then they do occasionally make alterations to their plasma, as it were. And it does happen.
Have you ever been at a wedding where someone swapped a place?
Oh, I mean, like almost every wedding, I think. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Yeah. At some ceremonies, people just go and sit next to each other. Celebrities, it's like people always say that Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez say, we're going to sit next to each other.
TV Choice Awards.
Yeah, either put them next to each other or just accept that they will simply do it. And you're not going to go and say to those 2, hi, you're not important enough. You have to, so... They can do it, but you can make representations. But in general, there's a lot of reasons for eye lines and whatever. And everyone who's probably worked a bit in the film industry understands that. By the way, we get so many emails a week to this portion of the show. Email address is therestisentertainment@gmail.com. But this one is actually slightly dated, but I think it's interesting because I think product placement is always really interesting. Poppy Hooper said she'd watched the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special, and they're curious whether Samsung had some product placement in there. Everyone had Samsung phones. Rob Brydon's character had a very stage line about how good his Samsung phone is. I thought product placement was allowed on the BBC, so are there loopholes around this, or was it not paid for at all?
The reason I thought this was a fun question to answer is not about that at all. On BBC, it's almost impossible to have product placement. But James and Ruth are both I try and you write about brands all the time because it's funny, and you think about characters in terms of what brands they might use, and so that I think it's just one of those things where probably in another show they wouldn't have got away with it because Gavin and Stacey is so huge that you can slightly do what you want, but they're incredibly tough on product placement on the BBC. They would say you have to have some because otherwise no one in EastEnders is driving a car. So, but you have to make sure it's different ones. But the reason I wanted to answer this is because of something which I became aware of recently, which I think is really, really interesting. It might be a spoiler for people, but that Apple, whenever they provide phones and things like that for television shows, they have a no villains clause. So if you're watching a whodunit and you're not sure who done it, if someone is using an Apple phone or an Apple laptop, then they did not do it. If someone is using a non-branded phone or a phone that isn't Apple, then they probably did. And so I just thought that was one of those bits of product placement things which actually provide spoilers to television programs, but they have a no villains clause.
That is brilliant. I didn't know that. Yeah. I love that.
But it means that Rob Brydon with his Samsung, if he turns up in a murder mystery, then he probably did it. This episode is brought to you by NordVPN.
Now, it might be a new year, Richard, but online fraudsters continue with their same old tricks.
I feel you're about to help me avoid some online disasters.
I'm always here to help. I live to serve. And with that in mind, I want to tell you about NordVPN's threat protection.
Threat Protection. It's not, the first Steven Seagal movie. Threat Protection 2.
That could be his comeback. He doesn't necessarily need a comeback, but yes, once again, we are claiming copyright here on this podcast. Anyway, many ransomware attacks start with phishing emails or malicious websites. By encrypting your data, NordVPN can protect against certain types of attacks. Threat protection reduces the risks of accidentally downloading ransomware from malicious links or even from ads.
As does Threat Protection 2. I think I speak for everyone when I want to thank you, Marina, and NordVPN for keeping our data safe online.
Yes, I am a huge part of it, but you can keep your family's data safe too, as one NordVPN account can be used across 10 devices.
To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/TRIE, and our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan.
There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and it only costs the price of a cup of coffee a month. The link is in the episode notes.
Marina Laura Herbert asks, if you could retire one overused trope or cliché in movies and or stories, what would it be and why?
Okay, I knew this was coming, and I genuinely believe this could be an entire separate, always-on podcast, and I'm very sorry. A lot of what follows may be controversial.
Well, why don't we never ever do 2-part answers, but we could do a 2-part answer
right.
if there's...
Okay, here's things that are currently, and relatively recently, annoying me. Saintly dead wives. A character having a saintly dead wife. No, any form of rape to make you care about the character, because you can't be bothered to make me care about this character, so you just visit terrible sexual violence on them, and then it's like, oh, I guess this feels really important and I have to care. But that feels very wrong. You know my feelings about they've got a podcast counting as a B plot. No.
That's such a big deal. I think we've talked before about why is an amateur person investigating a murder, and if they've got a podcast, that's why they're investigating.
Yeah, it's
enough. There is a lot of it.
6 months earlier, coming on the screen, that, and I've actually written something once. It was very difficult. There was no really other way to get around the fact that you had to show that there were stakes to this thing. But I don't like that. Kisses being interrupted, and then it's like, well, they're not really together. By the way, if you've come that close to kissing, then there's a thing happening between you.
Oh, you mean kisses? People getting close to kissing and then stopping,
and then some events intervene, and you're like, okay, nothing happened. It did happen. Okay, you nearly kissed each other. That's rubbish. Okay, all the bathos and irony and that particular way of doing it, like cheeky one-liners after certain things, which was sort of brilliant in Die Hard, but is now that absolute reductio ad absurdum in Marvel things that I can't stand it. Drone shots are starting to piss me off.
Oh, really?
Drone shots are pissing me off. Particularly the downward vertical going over like a pine forest or something. Can someone please divert this? Can we have a cat stuck up one of the pine trees? Like, hang on, what's that? Move back.
Every Netflix documentary that starts with a pine forest and one of those big water towers with the name of the town on it. The thing I like about drone shots is they've made cheaper TV look much better.
That's what they are. They make it look much more expensive.
You look at that amazing Mortimer and Whitehouse go fishing. And the drone shots just make that they add so much to it. Given you can afford a helicopter,
you used to see lens flares too much, and that very very focused center of frame when the outsides are all blurry. It's like an animal. Maybe they're using an anamorphic wide angle. This is such a piece of Netflix house style at the moment. I really just it manages to look both cheap and like really.
I don't know what you're referring to there.
Polished. Okay, yes, that's annoying.
Like when you're like an animal is looking at something.
No, it's very very focused in the centre of the frame and all the outside is blurry, and it's a particular way of doing it, and it just looks it's so part of their house style now. They do it in so many things and I just don't like it.
Never noticed it.
Okay. AI being the villain. Pointless one-shots. The director's got to do a really long one-shot.
Pointless the quiz?
Not the quiz, sadly. Yeah. I'd love you to do that in one shot. Yeah. We haven't tried to do a live episode. But those one-ers where you become so aware that it's like a dick-waving move by the director that I'm thinking, have they cut yet? No, they've not cut. Then okay, they're not cutting. Oh, I see. Oh, right, I get it. They're doing a one-er.
They're doing a one-er.
They're doing a one-er. Wow, they must be a really cool guy. Superheroes not really dying or just being able to be bought, like no stakes stuff. Multiverses, they can do one.
Yeah.
Kitchen islands. I don't know why they're starting to annoy me a lot.
We went to someone's house recently and they had 2 kitchen islands.
Shut up.
Can you believe that? It was in LA, so I guess it's the norm.
In the same kitchen?
In the same kitchen, yeah. I called them St Kitts and Nevis.
I love that so much.
2 in the same. They were renting a place in LA, and
I said,
it had 2 kitchen islands.
Exactly.
What do you think about that? So I said to Megan, "That's a lot."
Yeah, that's a hell of a lot.
That's a lot of islands, Megan. And Harry said, "I got more islands than that, mate."
Kitchen archipelago.
Yeah.
Okay. Passwords being something you can work out if you look around the room or know one thing about the person. Yeah. This is so ridiculous. Okay, this is so ridiculous.
I always think when you're downloading something and it says loading in really big letters, it tells you exactly what's happening on screen in a way that your computer doesn't say.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that's the prime example of that, which is another thing that pisses me off, is timers that someone's bothered to have helpfully fit a digital display. So there's no need.
Yeah.
What were you doing this for? For the person that diffuses it, telling them how long they got?
That's true.
It's absolutely totally unnecessary to put a clock on a bomb.
Well, I don't know, but
unless you're standing around with it, in which case you presumably know when it's going to go off. It's not an oven.
And if it was an oven, it would be like an hour off because you wouldn't have changed it from daylight savings. But sometimes you need a clock in a bomb. Sometimes that's the mechanism. So I would say that's where they get.
Is it 1961? You don't need one. I have to say, in the year 2025, you don't actually need a clock in a bomb.
Oh, you know a lot about bombs.
Yeah, I mean, I know that much. I look at the technology. I mean, you know, I can
look
see.
Where are you looking at the technology?
In
Just out of
news
interest.
stories, wherever it's being, you know, exercised against people.
And you look at the thing and goes, was there a clock involved? They don't normally mention if there was a clock involved or not.
They're like 2 bottles of peroxide they've bought off the internet. You can see what's involved.
But I'll say this, which is sometimes we copy what we see on television. So perhaps bomb makers are thinking, do you know what this is missing?
Is a little red
digital clock.
Okay. Speaking of which, villains that you don't know what they want or why. And by the way, world domination is not a reason. It has to be something more than that. I didn't mind this at first, but like modern music, like hip hop in historical dramas or whatever, that's starting to annoy me. At the first, it seemed like, you know, they're cool. They're just like our era. That can be quite annoying.
Also, like Miami-based hip hop on all property shows, like selling Sunset, selling everything, but it's all some sort of sub Pitbull.
The genre most likely to make you care about kitchen archipelagos.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, actually, speaking of bomb clocks, bomb clocks, 60 seconds taking longer in the time of you watching it than the 60 seconds on the screen. That's annoying. That's been going forever, by the way. That's not a new thing.
When someone goes underwater on a television program, do you hold your breath?
I love that question. I don't know. I bet you do.
Yeah, of course. Because then you really understand the jeopardy. I'm like, oh man, this is really, because if I'm struggling with my lung capacity, then this person's panicking.
I love that. You know I'm doing that forever now. Okay, fine.
Same as when you go under a bridge, right? You got to hold your breath. Go through a tunnel.
Do you?
Yeah, do you not?
No.
Wow, you're a monster.
I'm just going to be doing this forever now.
Yeah, the second you go under, you hold a breath, and then you. I mean, if you're ever in a traffic jam under a tunnel, that's how I'm going to go. Eventually, what happened to him? I don't know. All I know was he was in a tunnel. There was a traffic jam.
He's blue, and we don't know what happened. Honestly, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, and he was watching Skyfall on his phone as well. And he was watching the opening of that.
Okay, being able to be shot and be essentially fine.
Yeah.
No consequence, major injury, ultra violence that you can still like run a marathon practically afterwards.
I don't mind that because Reacher. I like it when Reacher is injured and he's still okay.
But he's not like us.
No, he's not like us.
When it's people, ordinary people, relatively, or if it's Reacher, I just feel that he's
of course.
Can rebuild in front of me,
of
course. Exposition dialogue. I'm seeing this more and more. I saw some written by a very good TV writer recently, and I just thought, will that be in the reviews? Because I'm stunned that you've dealt with about 5 minutes of on-screen action to make me care about why I care about this by simply saying this is important because.
Yes.
Almost like the words were, it's important that people care about this because.
Yeah, first episodes of things particularly have that, and I think it's got worse, and I think that must be notes because writers usually, you can hide your exposition. It's one of the key things in writing any TV or any books at all is you have to get information across, but it cannot come across in the form of information. Yeah. It has to come across you're doing something else and it comes across. And I think the Netflixes and Amazon Primes of this world want you to spell it out a little bit more.
Yes.
So I think we're seeing more of it.
I'm starting to feel that the Eat the Rich genre needs a little bit of refreshing, slightly. And we can't, obviously I said this could be a whole separate podcast. I'll do my last one. This is the thing that probably annoys me more than anything. Any form of stupid misunderstanding that could simply be cleared up by people talking about it. Yeah. And yet it's allowed to continue and drive the plot for a third, a half, the whole episode is so ridiculous, and it's just not how life works, and it always takes me out of it because you think you would just ask one more follow-up question or something.
No, I've got to go. I have to go. No, but the thing I've got to say is actually really important.
It's
I go, no,
so
I've got to go.
stupid.
Sorry, talk to you later. Just shout it after them.
Yeah, that's
there's a bomb under your car.
Ring back, text them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so stupid. It's and there's all sorts of different varieties of that.
Yeah.
But anything that could be sorted out by people talking in the way that people talk all the time, to me becomes like, oh, I'm just watching some sort of coincidence thing, and I can't.
You see it in police procedurals an awful lot, which is they're aware of the 5 things that are the pieces of evidence that are going to convict the person, but you have to drip feed them across. And for example, the second the fingerprints come through, we know that that's going to be the thing. So they just go, oh, yeah, no, still haven't come through. You think, come on. Really, they haven't come through, and so we'll move on to something else. You go, but we're just waiting for that when that comes through. Or goes, yeah, Gav, can I just tell you something about this? He goes, sorry, I can't. I'm in a meeting. You go, no, you're a police officer. He's literally just said he's looking through the CCTV. He's spotted something. You're not going to go into a meeting with the chief constable, even if your ass is on the line. You are going to go, oh, what is it, John? And you go, oh, just because I've seen the car that we were talked about, and it's here, which means he did the murder. He has to go, yeah, later. Yeah, come on.
No, yeah. Anyone who says you can't report a missing person for 48 hours, that might be very helpful to the plot of your television series. But if you think that in this country, if your daughter's gone missing, they'll say, come back in 48 hours and tell us your daughter's gone missing. No, they're not going to say that. And in fact, the sort of golden hour of when you can find people is really quite near the start. So they're not going to make you wait for 48 hours. But it might be helpful if you have to do it, if you have to go and just track down this thing yourself.
A fun thing to look out for is how long forensics takes in different shows. And should I tell you how long it takes? It takes exactly how long is most helpful to the script. So often it go, oh, actually, we need this fingerprint thing now. You go, I've asked them to rush this through, boss. And they go, why? They got that through pretty quickly. Or they go, listen, they're absolutely snowed under there. They said it could be 72 hours. And it's like, it takes how long it takes, but you know exactly how you just go, okay, that's going to be important, but it's going to be important in episode 4. And this bit of information we need now. So forensics is that beautiful piece of elastic for any crime writer. It can take as long or as short as you want. And everyone goes, oh, I can't believe they're absolutely snowed under. Or, wow, it's amazing they got that through in 35 minutes. Yeah, we got the phone records through. You got the phone records through because on the last series, it took you like 2 weeks to get the phone records through. You seem to have got it through in 45 minutes this time. That I don't mind.
Yeah.
Because, listen, give us a break. You got to have something. Yeah, Laura, thank you so much for that question.
We'll snap this back, but
shall we'll always remember it as Laura's question, and we'll go back every now and again and say, shall we do a Laura Herbert?
Topical, this one from Pete Chow. Who writes the scripts for celebs reading the nominees at award ceremonies, and why is it always so dreadful?
I think what Pete is talking about is, so you've got your host script monologue, which is different, and then you've got 2 people who come on. Adam Woodjack will come on with Natalie Cassidy, and they'll be giving away the best makeup, and they read out the citation essentially. Believe it or not, is written by an entirely different group of people to the people writing the monologue script. The monologue script is usually quite fun if you've got like a David Tennant or someone like that hosting. Can be less fun if you've got someone who's a less easy to work with actor or someone who thinks that they can do their own material. I talked to 2 people, Sean Pye and Christine Rose, who are 2 of the absolute best writers in the business. They do loads of awards things, do loads of comedy shows as well. Certainly if you're looking for writers, they're the people to go for. In We Solve Murders, my last book, there's a character called Max Highfield, who's a sort of Tom Hardy-esque actor, and he's doing the World Diamond Awards in Dubai. And I thought it'd be funny if I just give him Sean and Christine as writers. And so I mentioned, I got Sean and Christine write the script for Max Highfield.
That, yes.
Yeah, and he does not go with all their material.
No.
I'll say that. Sean says it's quite fun to write citations because it's the only time anyone ever says transcendent or incomparable. So he enjoys that. Christine says it's the worst job in the business. And I absolutely accept that that's true. She said by and large, you want to do the monologue. Occasionally, you'll take a citations job if it's like last minute, and you think, do you know what? I'm not working today, and this is quite an easy way to do it. Said she was doing one big award ceremony. The guy did it the previous year. Said, look, sometimes it's the best job in the world because occasionally you'll write something, and Kelsey Grammer will be giving it out, and Kelsey Grammer will look at it and go, "Oh, this is great. I don't need to change a word," because he understands comedy. And then you're like, this is great. He said, and then immediately after, there'll be 2 people from Downton you don't recognise just going, what's this rubbish? We're going to do our own stuff. And by and large, that's why citations are so bad. Firstly, you have to get across information. And secondly, most people who are going along to do that, they haven't spent, the last 3 days rehearsing. They just turn up, they see a bit of paper, and most people go, oh no, I'm just going to say my own thing. And so the citations writers do all of this work, and lots of talent come along and say, I'm not going to say that. The comic talent comes along and goes, oh yeah, that's good, that's nice. Can I use that? Maybe put it in their own words. But the non-comic talent will go, I don't understand. Why would I say that? That feels like I'm undercutting the craft of hair and makeup. And they will.
And by the way,
say
they'll
their
do
own
this
things.
last minute. The ones where they rehearse are like the Oscars. They rehearse. They make them rehearse because we're so important. The Golden Globes recently, you could tell they hadn't rehearsed, and it can be absolutely excruciating. People are like, "What's going on?" And it's not clear often to the people who have freestyled in the way they have that they are absolutely dying on their arse until it's absolutely happening.
Yeah, exactly that. Sean has very kindly written me a citation for citation writers. The citation writer. They transcend what we accept to be possible, bringing imagination and wonder in incomparable measure. They thrill us and scare us. They truly are the masters of their craft. The nominations are. And that's it. It's paid work, but it's probably not the most fun paid work you're ever going to get. But yeah, written by completely different people to the people who write the monologue, which is a very funny, but weirdly they sort of swap around. There's no reason why someone's doing one and someone's doing the other. It's just the order in which you get the gig. I have a question for you, Marina, from Daniel B. Mel B's brother. No, Daniel B. B-E-E.
Yeah.
That's a cool surname, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I like it.
I have just watched the closing credits for Love Again on Netflix, and they listed 2 eyeline actors. What are these, and what are the attributes of a good eyeline actor?
An eyeline actor is basically someone who is standing in, for one reason or another, which we'll come to, of the same height as the eyes of the person that maybe you're talking to in that scene. Or sometimes, to be honest, it's used a lot in things with lots of CGI. As I say, I don't know what Love Again doesn't sound like it's got a lot of CGI in, but never mind. In shows where you have, or in something where, movies where there's a whole CGI characters, then you're going to have somebody standing there so that people in scenes can...
Because sometimes it'll be like a tennis ball on a pole. But actually it's more useful if someone is standing in there who is the same size, height and dimensions of whatever character is going to be portrayed on screen.
Whatever it is that's going to be there. And even in Marvel, for Thanos, Josh Brolin had this ridiculous sort of... I mean, it did look really rubbish. It's like he's there with his mocap suit on. And because Thanos is very, very big, then there's this stick that's sort of taped to something across his shoulders. And honestly, a cardboard cutout of Thanos' face. But that's for eyeline, so that the actors, when talking... We're looking in the right place and not at basically Thanos' neck or sternum.
Yeah. Not at actual Thanos.
Thanos.
But on TV Thanos.
What by the time they've added all the CGI in post where it's going to be. But having said that, there's another reason that you might need eyeline actors, which I would sort of describe as actor arseholery, really.
The more traditional,
which is that, or scheduling. There's a lot of films, by the way, nowadays, particularly, by the way, in some of the many spin-offs of Marvels, where you'd be shocked how many of those characters never even were in the same room together because scheduling just made it impossible. They were all doing other things. There were so many characters. People acted opposite an eyeline actor who was just there to sort of take the lines.
And to put it in the most simple terms, if there's a conversation, if I'm having a conversation with Richard Armitage in a television program, it goes to me, then it goes to him, then it goes to me, then it goes to him. Those can be shot completely separately.
Yeah.
But if they are shot separately, then I need to be looking at someone who's the height of Richard Armitage, and more to the point, he needs to be looking at someone who's the height of me.
And also, it can happen because for whatever reason, when actors are rehearsing, they'll do the rehearsal on a set. Then you'll have a crew rehearsal so you can see where everyone is, and then the actors go off and sit and relax, and their stand-ins are there for all the way for it being lit and all of that sort of stuff.
So the cameras know exactly where they are, how to light the person, because they're lighting someone exactly the same height. As
I say, actor arseholery. There are certain actors, or there are times when relationships have broken down so badly that you're getting somebody else to be in all the scenes. Like most of that I Love Trouble, Julia Roberts and Nick Nolte, that's her worst ever job. She hated him so much. And I think they weren't in... It was a romantic comedy and they're really not in barely any scenes.
And so again, quite often what will happen there is if you got, say, Julia Roberts. I'll use the example of me and Richard Armitage again, and it's no shade on Richard Armitage, by the way. I've just chosen him at random. Say he's the main character in the scene. They will shoot his lines first. So I'll be doing my lines, but the camera is not on me. So they'll shoot all of his stuff first. They will then do the reverse, which is me. So you're doing the same scene, but the camera pointed at me. But Richard Armitage does not have to stick around if he doesn't want to when I'm doing my scenes.
But which is so obnoxious because it's much harder to act with someone. No disrespect to island actors.
So most actors will stay exactly where they are and say, "No, you were there for me, so I'm staying there for you." That's
for
what
your
most
coverage,
actors
as
do.
we would call it.
Exactly that. So they will stick around until you are done. But yes, certain actors, not Richard. Sorry, genuinely not Richard Armitage, would just go back to their trailer and go, "No,
we can go back to Wesley Snipes on Blade, which who's like almost the example of all of these things. Remember, I told you about when he refuses to open his eyes.
Yeah.
So they have to. That's the last Blade. I mean, and by the end of those Blades, he was refusing to do absolutely everything. Almost everything, apparently, was done by stand-ins. He was so completely obnoxious by this point. And he wouldn't do... And it is obviously very hard to act versus a crew member just holding a sort of green thing here as to insert Wesley Snipes here.
Insert Wesley Snipes here.
Yeah.
That's my new novel.
Yeah. I wish that was your new... Yes, okay.
So sometimes it's CGI, sometimes it's the two actors in completely different places and needs to be fitted together, and sometimes it's one actor who just, the second they finish their bit, goes back to their trailer. Those are the three big reasons for island actors. Because
relations have broken down. That's us for this episode, and we will actually have an episode coming out tomorrow for a bonus episode for our club members. If you want to sign up, it's therestisentertainment.com. And that is going to be about...
Ryan Murphy, one of the great Hollywood showrunners of modern times.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about him. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for all your messages about coolness. I do accept that there is a sea change that goes towards Marina, but I think sometimes history proves us right. So I will wait. I'm happy to wait it out.
Tony Blair on the Iraq War. Okay, very good. Other than that, we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.